Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tuxedo Town Board Workshop Special Meeting. Today is January 11th. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 6:33 p.m. As always, we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. So this evening we have an interesting presentation by Burgis Associates being presented by Edward Snikes of Burgis Associates. They did an original study going back to 2003, but the town board asked them to update this at the direction mostly of Deputy Supervisor Lindsay and Councilperson Deidre Murphy. I've been working with Ed. This is a conceptual plan about the Route 17 Hamlet corridor. You'll be hearing about ideas about potential upgrades to streetscapes, sidewalks, signage, facades, traffic. Really an effort to give a major facelift to our town hamlet. The board just received these documents yesterday, so this is new to us as well for the most part. This is also part of a bigger plan that we're developing of obviously working with Related and Lennar on Tuxedo Farms. As part of that project, we also have a Tuxedo LDC, $1.1 million allocated for business and streetscape development. And if you haven't heard from me yet, the sewer plant actually became active today, so I could hear the thunderous applause from all over the town. The $10 million sewer plant has been activated today, so that will serve the town for the next century. So I'm going to pass the baton over to my colleague Deidre Murphy, who will give a more detailed introduction to tonight's program. Deidre?
Okay. Well, before I start, I just wanted to congratulate the people who worked on the sewer plant for successfully opening it, and because there was a lot of debate as to how to toast it, I'm presenting a bottle of bubbly so that you can enjoy that for your wonderful accomplishment.
Well, thank you so much. We'll be sure to do that.
Good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very appreciated.
Okay, so I'm going to spend just a minute before Ed begins his presentation to just talk about where we are and what we're trying to achieve here. So, let me see. Just going back, I got this slide from 4 years ago because what we decided to do was to go back to the comprehensive plan and take a look at what direction we wanted to go with the hamlet. So at the time, we said that we needed to review the streets and what could we do with the streetscapes to make them walkable and safe for pedestrians. How we're going to take a look at the Route 17 corridor, what opportunities are there, and how can we basically enhance that. What are we going to do about parking? Because if we actually build a commerce center in that area, there is a parking limitation that we do have to look at. And going forward, are there architectural design standards that we should put in place to work with? So with that in mind, we have asked Burgis to take a look at the first part, which is the streetscape portion. So to basically summarize where we are on this entire project, we have many things in the works which all contribute to where we have to put a plan together. First, we have the Burgis study, which we're going to hear concepts of today. Then we were just awarded, and we did get the Greenway grant. That grant will evaluate what are the economic situations happening within the hamlet, along with the 17 corridor, and what opportunities are there business-wise that could actually be sustainable in the corridor. There's always concern that if you put in a ShopRite, it wouldn't really, the current demographics don't support it. So what supports businesses in the hamlet and along the 17 corridor so that we can start to try to entice businesses to come to Tuxedo. Certainly, we have a lot of opportunity with Tuxedo Farms now. There's the Tuxedo LDC grants, which they're going to be having a meeting on next week. We are working on establishing a safety school zone as you enter into Tuxedo, which will hopefully slow down the traffic as it comes in. One of the big issues that we have is that Route 17 is our main street. And then going forward, we will start talking to the New York State Department of Transportation on how can we work with the Route 17 to make it safe for pedestrians, to make it safe for traffic. How can they help us? And basically, what happened in Sloatsburg, and are there Sloatsburg issues that we can then incorporate into our town that make it better for the town? So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Ed, who's going to talk about our first phase, which is really about gathering the information, mapping and researching all of these concepts and presenting them so that we can work on them as a board. And then once we come up with a more tangible plan, we'll start to have focus groups and bring it into the community for feedback.
Thank you, Deirdre.
Ed?
Thank you.
You're on.
Good evening. Thank you very much. If you just bear with me for a moment, I'm just switching over to my screen. It's supposed to come up. Try again. Give it a second try here. Make sure the computers are talking to each other. No, that's not my background. Oh, yes it is, I'm sorry. Thank you. You know what I'll do? I'll actually launch the slideshow. That probably will come up that way. There we go.
There you go.
Okay, very good. Good evening, everybody. Just a little bit about myself. I'm Edward Snikes, a professional planner and also a landscape architect. We've been asked, as Deirdre had mentioned a moment ago, to prepare a plan that looks at your existing streetscape conditions and offers some ideas. Some of the ideas are out of the box, some of the also outside the box as well. And what we're trying to do here is really offer opportunities. In my professional opinion, I think that your hamlet is a very unique and beautifully stylized downtown area. Obviously, as you know, Route 17 has had its major impacts on your downtown area, especially from a pedestrian standpoint and also a vehicular standpoint. And that really does a substantial amount of impact to the flow and the circulation and the success of your downtown. So what we're happy to do is to be part of this overall analysis and offer you some ideas and ways to make improvements to various components within the downtown area. Bear with me a moment. I just want to make sure both screens show the same thing. I want to make sure you can see my mouse. Bear with me a second. Of course, it's not advancing now. What did I say about Murphy's Law a moment ago?
I am Murphy.
It's been proved that
Yeah.
he was an optimist.
It's interesting
I'm
because I
upset all the
can't
time.
advance the slide, oddly enough.
My particular favorite was coleslaw.
Coleslaw?
What I think I'm going to do is, I may have to stop the show for a second. Bear with me. Try that again.
That could be tuxedo right there.
Why My apologies. Bear with me.
We did test it before.
Yeah, we did.
It worked, so.
Okay, let's try this now. It's not the way it worked before. Okay, you can see my mouse now. Okay. I'll have to refer to the screen up on the wall. Again, as I was mentioning a moment ago, we've done this analysis. It's broken down to two separate parts. The first part is the study of existing conditions, where we reviewed the existing built condition on the eastern and western portions of the hamlet area. And I'm referring to both sides of Route 17, essentially, the eastern side and the western side. We also then looked at a series of conceptual improvement recommendations to improve the function, vehicular, pedestrian circulation, and the aesthetic character of the hamlet. In addition to that, we're offering ideas to enhance the theme of the hamlet district through signage, amenities, and related improvements. Just a quick overview as to our study area. I think this is important so you can get your orientation to what you're looking at. What you're seeing here is a view looking towards the west in the upwards direction. What you're seeing along the corridor is Route 17 is the central spine running down the middle of that yellow area. The yellow area is really encompassing the properties and the land area of where we studied in the overall study area. You can see the train station, and then in addition to that, you see the other related roadways. You have on the southerly side, Contractor Road, which is in the far left corner. You have Hospital Road, which is in the central area of the study area. We also have Tuxedo Road and East Village Road towards the right-hand side or the northerly area of the district. So this is the general orientation of the mapping, just so you get a sense for how the maps are laid out. What just came up on the screen a moment ago is actually Route 17's corridor, which runs down the central spine of the district, just so for orientation purposes. So what makes a good downtown streetscape? There's many different ingredients that go into that, such as sidewalks, public space, circulation, street furniture, aesthetic features, outdoor dining, signage, transit, and lighting, and amongst the others. All these features are important considerations when you look at a downtown streetscape, and you try to encourage these sort of features to overall improve the function as well as the aesthetics and the interest of the downtown corridor. So I think that's one thing that we may be missing in our downtown is that, and I refer to it as our downtown because we like to take ownership of this overall scope, and that the downtown itself is a sort of a polished gem in my mind. It has a lot of architectural interest. It has a substantial amount of traffic running through it, and I think that can be captured through features and improvements in your streetscape. Study of some of the existing conditions. This is a series of maps that I'll show you that I'll highlight various areas on the map to help you understand what some of the things that we were looking at, how those improvements, excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm trying to do this all from the larger screen because the smaller screen didn't work, but bear with me a second. Okay, so first I'm going to zoom in on Park Avenue at its intersection with Tuxedo Road. What you're seeing here is the existing Park Avenue roadway, which is a sub-street, as I call it, of Route 17. As many of you know, you can actually circulate to many of your buildings along Route 17 without actually having to go on to Route 17. We became aware of that, and it became a substantial feature that I think you can enhance in your downtown. Because Route 17 has its limitations as to traffic and volume of circulation that occurs in that area, what we're offering tonight is ways to improve Park Avenue as well as Store Road as your other substreets of your downtown area. What that allows for is greater circulation and movement within the downtown and ways of getting around instead of having to always go out to Route 17 for circulation, at least in that westerly portion of the district. What you're seeing on the right-hand side is Tuxedo Road and its intersection We identified some of the features. Obviously, there's a culvert coming from Tuxedo Park itself down through towards Route 17, eventually making its way to the Ramapo River. Vehicular circulation currently is utilizing Park Avenue. Park Avenue is what I would characterize as a undifferentiated roadway from the standpoint of, is it two-way or one-way circulation? As of right now, it's a it's a two-way circulation for most of it, with the exception of where we get to another choke point, which I'll talk to in a moment, that limits it from being a two-way circulation aisle. And I think that's something that we can enhance through striping and through other demarcations in order to have Park Avenue as a two-way circulation aisle. You have existing developments along that roadway, such as the former Chase Bank, and we have other commercial properties that are adjacent to it that also utilize Park Avenue and other roadways like Store Road as its almost service driveway. And that feature itself brings with it benefits, but also limitations, obviously, to improvements along Park Avenue. I'm now moving to the south along Park Avenue to show some of the other intersecting streets. We have Van Zant, and then we have Augusta Place. As I mentioned a moment ago, and I'm going to move my mouse to approximately the location, you have here where two existing buildings are in close proximity to one another, creating virtually a one-way driveway. That one-way driveway, there's no way of changing that because of the physical limitations that's in that area, with the exception of adjacent building improvements. Instead of recommending anything so drastic, what we're looking at and what you'll see in some of the concepts that we pursued was ways to work with that and to realize that up to Van Zant, Park Avenue may be a two-way circulation aisle, but at Van Zant itself, it already is an existing two-way circulation aisle, providing access to properties to the south. You have Tuxedo Square, and then you also has circulation to Park Avenue itself. We look to maintain that two-way circulation and try to enhance that along Van Zant. Obviously, that choke point at Augusta Place is also complicated by Augusta Place coming down to Park Avenue in a non-90-degree circulation pattern in that area. That creates a confusing intersection for those who may be new to the area, especially if you're trying to get to Tuxedo Square. Let's say you turn at the light at Route 17 to the south of this image, and then turned in towards Augusta Place. It then becomes sort of a question, okay, which way do I go and who has the right of way? I think that can be improved through striping and other opportunities that we have in that area. We also have areas to the back of Tuxedo Square. You have your AC condensers and your waste containers for the function of the overall building. The building has been positioned in this manner for many, many years. And so there's only so many ways to make improvements to that area in order to allow vehicular circulation, thinking about the general public who might be coming to some of your businesses in the future as we make improvements, looking at ways to try to aesthetically enhance those back areas of buildings. You also have Library Road intersecting with Augusta Place, and also as Library Road curves towards the south. That intersection itself is rather large and undefined. I think with striping and some minor improvements to that intersection, we can make that intersection much more attractive, as well as easy to understand for maybe a newcomer that comes to this area. Sorry, I'm just circulating around. As you'll see in the same map, this is existing conditions analysis. You obviously have at Library Road a full vehicular circulation signal. That provides two things. Obviously, vehicular circulation at that point, but also an opportunity for pedestrians to cross the roadway. Route 17 is obvious to many in this meeting that it's very difficult to cross if you're not crossing at the signals themselves, being that it's a 4-lane roadway. Van Zant itself is unsignalized. You do have the flashing light further down the roadway, but that there's no direct pedestrian connection to the train station other than at Library Road. We also looked at the train station itself, and what's interesting at the train station is that there's no sidewalks that come from Library Road's intersection to the front entrance and to the overall train station area. It's all vehicular circulation. And we noticed that the asphalt area for the parking lot for the train station is rather large. It's, the aisle width itself is larger than it needs to be with a 90-degree circulation pattern. What that offers is an opportunity. We're looking for opportunities and ways to make small incremental improvements to improve circulation and enhance the overall downtown area. So that became apparent to us as we looked at the overall property. In addition to that, looking further towards the north, when you look at the drive that comes from the East Village Road area, there is no pedestrian connection from the park and ride facility. It's further down the hill. And that, I think, is another opportunity that we could take a look at to make that improvement as well. This next series of slides will show some photographs of the existing conditions. This is looking south along Park Avenue. Obviously, you have your Chase Bank building to the left, as many may know. But you can see how this is an undefined roadway. It seems like two-way circulation, but it really isn't defined in that manner. I think a simple stripe down the road would help with that. But also, there is no pedestrian circulation. I think an idea here would be is to see how we could possibly add pedestrian circulation along the streetscape. Because I think Park Avenue as well as Store Road is an opportunity that maybe isn't fully benefited from a pedestrian circulation standpoint. You have Route 17 and the sidewalks along Route 17, but I think these sub-streets or the back roads themselves could also have pedestrian improvements, which you'll see in a moment. Just another slide to show the existing conditions behind Tuxedo Square and the intersection that's behind that area. You can see how the two buildings are in close proximity and there's no room for two-way circulation. It's probably done on courtesy at this point, as far as cars passing one another, but as right now, dimensionally, it's really only would allow for one-way circulation. What I've just advanced to is another existing conditions map that we prepared. And again, I will look to zoom in on this as well. And again, starting at Library Road and the intersection of Library Road and Store Road. You have Store Road here, Library Road coming from the intersection of Route 17, and then it traverses further up the hill, serving adjacent single-family residential properties. What we noticed is that the intersection here is rather awkward. It comes in at many angles. I'm sure many of you are aware of that. And you have a one-way circulation of Store Road coming up into Library Road. What I thought might be an opportunity is possibly to rethink that intersection and also to enhance a way for Store Road to be possibly two-way circulation in order to allow it to improve circulation and opportunities to connect to back areas of these buildings that front along Route 17, as well as the commercial properties that front Store Road itself. You have existing air conditioning condensers, trash cans, things of that nature that also exist in this area. You have large open parking areas that dimensionally are larger than they need to be for some of the existing commercial properties. I think that represents a possible opportunity for commercial properties themselves. You have the intersection of Store Road and Hospital Road that you'll see off to the left-hand side. It's rather wide, undifferentiated intersection, probably evolved over time as the appropriate ways to address circulation. I think we have the opportunity to rethink those intersections and make improvements to them as well. You have some wide driveway areas, and again, lack of pedestrian circulation in the back areas of the buildings. And I think that's another opportunity that allows this interconnection between properties and buildings. At the intersection of Hospital Road and Route 17, the entrance area, or the exit area, excuse me, from the existing commercial property that exists at that corner is a large, again, undifferentiated intersection. I think that might also represent another opportunity. What we also looked at in the downtown streetscape is ways to try to identify and highlight these intersections, but highlight that you're in a specific district. You do that through signage, landscaping, and pedestrian improvements that draws potential patrons to the area to see that they can use this area and possibly walk from businesses to businesses to frequent the storefronts. And that's something I think was a main focus of what we tried to look at and capture within the downtown area. On the easterly side of Route 17, you have existing sidewalk areas that you know have been recently improved. Unfortunately, there are no landscape features along that area. It is rather large sidewalks as well as all concrete with no street trees. Things of that nature, we've had a lot of experience and success in downtowns where if you add street lights, you add street trees along your corridors, it adds a thematic element to your downtown area. So people know that they're entering a downtown. It doesn't feel so much like a highway. So that's another thing that we're looking to explore as well. Adjacent to the post office in this illustration, you see a large green space area. It's a rather unimproved area that I think represents a possible opportunity next to the post office. And this is the post office to the right-hand side. So we identified that as well. Additionally, we looked at other adjacent buildings on the easterly side of Route 17 and noticed that there are a lot of more light industrial, some warehousing type structures along that area. They represent some elements of commerce, but yet at the same time, some of the buildings could benefit from certain improvements. We looked at the existing warehouse that's at the opposite side of Hospital Road on the easterly side. You have large blank walls where the windows have been filled in along those walls. You'll see some ideas in a moment of how to possibly treat that in a very simple way, capturing some ideas of what other downtowns have done with walls such as that, to make them interesting and draw attention to your downtown and make it a point of interest for people passing through. So with that, I'll advance to some of the existing slides. Here is a view looking north on Store Road. It's obviously an existing one-way roadway, but you can see that there already is currently parking that's occurring along that area, undefined parking. You have defined parking on the adjacent properties to the left and to the right, but further down Store Road, you see at the library where there is parallel parking currently occurring. I think that is showing that there is a tendency and a potential for some parallel parking to be captured along Store Road. You have areas that are where the existing drain is in the foreground. If you follow that line, there's a really large unused section of asphalt that's in that area. So I think that represents an opportunity also, though we do have some limitations. If you look to the right, you see the existing utility pole that is somewhat of a physical limitation. Some of those things could be moved and reconsidered and to help with the redefining of the roadway and its function for the downtown area. I'm now transitioning further to the south because part of our study area also included additional area on the easterly side towards the south. But I wanted to use this illustration to show that at least in this location, and I'll zoom in on this in a moment, you have an opportunity that this is an unsignalized intersection. What Ms. Murphy mentioned a moment ago, you have an opportunity that potentially we can talk to DOT as an opportunity for another pedestrian crossing location. I think Hospital Road might represent such a location. What that allows for is for Hospital Road and the other streets to be connected across the highway to the easterly side of Route 17. We also looked at the sidewalks in the areas along adjacent properties towards the south. And what I'll point to right now is a driveway that services some of the other adjacent businesses. Yes, those driveways are available and open, but that the existing sidewalks are somewhat interrupted by the driveways themselves. What we try to do in downtown streetscapes that have been done and the sidewalks that have been improved further towards the north is to use concrete or use pavers at crossings of driveways. It allows for pedestrians to feel safer walking back and forth along the streetscape and knowing as a vehicular driver when you're entering and exit those driveways to be aware that that's a pedestrian zone. And so you'll see some ideas to recommend improvements to those areas. And with that, I'll now show some of the existing photographs. You obviously have your very beautiful, I think, historic and iconic buildings along the streetscape. But as I mentioned a moment ago, along that entrance area, you have this large undefined driveway that, in my opinion, doesn't need to be 2 lanes as an exit driveway. This might be an opportunity at this location here for possibly a district sign to really accentuate your downtown area, be a foreground piece to the architectural interest that's in the background. What I just transitioned to is the southerly area of the downtown area, and I just wanted to zoom in on this as well. Bear with me a quick second. So what you're seeing here is where the businesses end their parking lots that exist in that area. There is a vacant portion of a lot that exists along the streetscape, creating somewhat of a, what we call in the planning realm is a slang phrase of missing teeth. And that breaks up that element of streetscape along your corridor. And I think it's an opportunity for possible additional infill development. But of course, all that depends on economic improvements. You have your existing ambulance corps building, but also your existing signalized intersection that's in this area adjacent to Schoolhouse Road. That provides, again, another pedestrian connection on the opposite side of the streetscape. We did take the study area to Contractor Road in order to see if there's any other opportunities for connectivity. And I think there is a potential here where you have an undefined, a large open driveway appropriate for the ambulance vehicles coming in and out of the building, but maybe there's a need to connect a sidewalk and crosswalk area along that driveway. Again, looking along that existing streetscape, looking south on the easterly side of Route 17, you can see some of the adjacent businesses, the driveways, as well as sidewalk areas. And as I mentioned a moment ago, you have some driveways, where I'm going to put my mouse now, cursor, where those driveways are asphalt. We recommend they be either striped with crosswalks and or made into formal sidewalk areas that vehicles can cross, but it identifies a pedestrian realm to those vehicles. So now what we'll provide you with are some of the conceptual improvements. And again, just from plan view, and I'll go through some of these quickly because we have some simulations as well. I'll zoom in on some of the areas, but looking at Park Avenue again up in the north, what we looked at here was you have a overall width of about, I think we measured at 26 feet in width of that overall roadway. I think there's an opportunity to create 2 lanes in each direction, both about 11 or 12 feet wide, and allowing for a 4-foot wide area of striped asphalt or possibly a formal sidewalk to be added along Park Avenue. What again that provides is connectivity to Tuxedo Park, but it also provides a vehicular and possibly another alternative access route for bicycles so that they can also interconnect into the downtown area. So what you're seeing on the map as thematic elements of red and the lighter red colors are areas where this could be a striped area, it could be an imprinted area with a epoxy resin, or it could be a formalized sidewalk. So we wanted to identify those ideas so that you can see where those opportunities could be. In addition to that, we also looked at, but this would be on adjacent property, we understand that. There currently is some existing parking areas along Park Avenue that use Park Avenue for circulation. I think there are some other opportunities, if we find it's necessary, for additional parking spaces to be added in that area as an opportunity, recognizing, yes, that is on adjacent property. On Van Zant, I think there's an opportunity to improve the aesthetics, at least along the northerly side of the Tuxedo Square building. You have some areas where there are dumpsters that are located in that area. I think they could be fenced in and enclosed, drawing attention away from them instead of drawing attention to them. Again, pedestrian circulation from Route 17 to the back areas of Park Avenue, excuse me. But also what we looked at was the intersection of Augusta Place and Park Avenue. And now I'm circling that area with my mouse. And what we looked at was, is there an opportunity to bump out the asphalt into the asphalt area, a way to try to enclose dumpsters and trash storage areas into an island per se. That might be an area to help clean up some of the frontage along the back of Tuxedo Square. In addition to that, allowing for the circulation to be clarified coming down Augusta Place, allowing them the flow of circulation to the intersection of Library Road to the south, but then channelizing the driveway as a one-way circulation aisle to Park Avenue, still allowing that connectivity and working with that tight condition that's in that area. So that represents an opportunity for us to explore. In addition to that, the width of Augusta Place as it comes to the back of Tuxedo Square could be narrowed in some areas to improve landscaping and the green space. That helps to aesthetically improve that back area, so it doesn't feel like just an alleyway that's in back of a building. In addition to that, we have some areas of dumpster enclosures that exist along the southerly portion of Tuxedo Square. There's additional areas for possible landscaping if we were to just rechannelize the intersection of Library Road. Again, not taking away any of the existing parking spaces that currently occupy that area, but just trying to clean up and redefine the driveway aisle if at all possible. Another thing that we didn't quite illustrate here on the plan, but I wanted to kind of throw out there is an opportunity. As a visitor to this area, I felt coming from the south, the way I could frequent, for instance, the convenience store that's in Tuxedo Square, was I had to go from Library Road all the way around the building in this manner to come back around and utilize the parking spaces, not feeling comfortable to make a left turn into Van Zandt. Is there an opportunity to create either two-way circulation into Tuxedo Square or to redirect the circulation at Tuxedo Square? There's always two sides to that coin. If you redirect the circulation, obviously you're then sending everybody either out Van Zandt to Route 17 and then around in a counterclockwise direction to Library Road to use the intersection. So there's many different ways to look at that, but that's kind of the thinking that I wanted to bring to the table is, are we thinking of all these circulation patterns in the right manner? In addition to that, as I mentioned earlier, we looked at the easterly side at the train station location. And again, with some modifications, either through striping or just reconfiguration of the existing parking, there's an opportunity to add a proposed walkway along the, let's call it the westerly side of that parking area as a way to connect pedestrians to the crossing at Library Road to the train station itself. And I feel the access aisle or the drop-off area at the train station is wide enough that it would allow for a one-way circulation pattern and also the addition of a sidewalk area. Because there is no sidewalk that exists along this side of Route 17. That sidewalk could also be extended further towards the north, bringing it further down so pedestrians can connect to that main entrance area of the train station. So with that, that summarizes this page. I'll zoom out of that and go to the next series of images. This now is another map that shows an enlargement of the Store Road area. Again, I'll zoom in on a portion of it so I can help you see some of the detail to the map. Again, this is the idea that we had in mind of how we can possibly rethink Library Road, at least coming down from the south, towards the north, give them a stop bar, stop that circulation, and allow Store Road to have a two-way circulation pattern to Library Road. That allows greater circulation to the parking areas and may also offer opportunities for sidewalk or imprinted crosswalk areas to be added along Store Road. That allows for possibly additional on-street parallel parking spaces, much in the way it's used today, but yet to formalize those parking spaces as parallel parking spaces. Those parallel parking spaces areas could also be bumped out with landscaped islands to improve the streetscape condition and the aesthetic along the streetscape. Those landscaped islands could also add additional lighting, decorative lighting to that streetscape corridor. That decorative lighting provides evening activities, at least as well as improves the time at which businesses can stay open, such as during the winter months, as we're experiencing now when the sun goes down so early. In addition to that, we looked at ways to try to reconnect from, if we are adding pedestrian connectivity, how can we connect to other businesses on either side of Store Road as well? What you see here also is the ability to connect and extend those sidewalk areas further down towards Hospital Road. At Hospital Road, I thought that was an interesting intersection that if you are adding traffic and circulation onto Hospital Road, use it as an opportunity to create a intersection of interest. In some downtowns, what we've done and has been done successfully by others is areas where you imprint and you create sort of a thematic intersection. And that's done with either an epoxy coating of that intersection, or you can even look at that to possibly be reconfigured in some manner. Could it be a rotary in some manner? That has to be further reviewed. But you can see here that helps to at least identify and create sort of a point of interest for Store Road as well. So as a newcomer or a patron comes to some of the storefronts, they feel like Store Road isn't just a back road. It feels like more of your streetscape. So we're looking at ways to make these other sub-streets more interesting and more usable for the businesses and the downtown area. What we also noticed was this adjacent private property has a larger parking area with a large backup area. If that's just possibly reconfigured to minimum circulation aisle of 24 feet, 18-foot wide parking spaces, you have the ability to expand possibly an outdoor area or even some expansion to the adjacent commercial property. Again, allowing economic improvement for some of the properties themselves. What's also illustrated here as I pan towards Hospital Road's intersection with Route 17 is an opportunity with just some minor redefining of that driveway, an opportunity to create a entrance sign feature at that intersection. It may require, some retaining walls and features such as that in order to create a level area. But with additional paving and appropriate detailing, that can really create an interesting point of view as you travel down Route 17, realizing that that might be another entrance into your business district. In addition to that, you can see here where we added the crosswalk idea across Route 17 with possibly a pedestrian activated signal like they have in Sloatsburg. And with that, I'll just transition to the last page. This is generally the similar page, but you can see what's shown here in the lower left-hand corner is ideas of where we can extend the sidewalk across driveways in order to improve those sidewalk intersections. You can see also further down towards the south where we've added those same patterning and details so that it improves those intersections and crosswalk areas, as well as a potential crosswalk at Contractor Road. So we allow that a greater circulation and connectivity to the areas to the south. Overall, with the concept sketches that we've put together, what you're seeing here is additional public on-street parking areas, on-street and as well as potential off-street parking areas of 15 spaces on-street that could be captured by these improvements. In addition to that, you have one space added off-street and another off-street at the library itself, but you have another 11 off-street parking spaces at the post office that could also be captured. I didn't quite focus in on that area, but I can show you that in a moment. In addition to that, what I've shown is some possible additional parking spaces on adjacent private properties. What we're also asked to do is to look at Tuxedo Farms and its interface with the downtown area. Just so everybody has a reference, what we did is we downloaded the concept sketches that were prepared for the Tuxedo Farms area, and then overlaid on an aerial photograph that mapping with the downtown area of the hamlet in order to show you that relationship between Tuxedo Farms and the hamlet area. Because what we were charged with is, do we have opportunities? Let's not miss an opportunity to possibly provide a pedestrian connection between the hamlet and the overall Tuxedo Farms development. And what you'll see in this illustration, and again, I'll zoom in on this, I know it may not be easy to read from a distance. is this connectivity here where we are right now in this, the town hall, which is located here. Here's Hospital Road. This is the area of Store Road that I talked about a moment ago. Unfortunately, and I think unfortunately for the connectivity, is that Tuxedo Farms frontage is behind the municipal town hall. It is an area that we could connect to. We could provide some connectivity through sidewalk improvements past the town hall, but that it would be more like a informal trail that may connect to Tuxedo Farms. Because you'll see as I pan to the north, or towards the west, excuse me, the current trail system that's being anticipated is up in this upper area of the image that you're seeing. And it goes around Mountain Lake. That's something anticipated. But there could be a spur of that trail brought in. It may have some switchbacks and connectivity because there is a grade change that occurs in this area down to Tuxedo, the Hamlet area towards the east. So that is another potential opportunity that we could look at. This is another illustration that shows you at least a grade change version or view of the difference between the Hamlet area, which is down in the lower portion of this image, going around the Tuxedo Town Hall, and then looking at that frontage and how the grade change does occur to the Mountain Lake area. And you can see the Tuxedo Farms West Terrace area is approximately up in here. I utilize a Google Earth image which helps to show some of the topographic relief and relationship of the topography to the Hamlet area. So while it couldn't be a more formalized, let's say, sidewalk area, it may be an opportunity for a trail connectivity. So we wouldn't miss that opportunity to allow at least that connectivity to the downtown area. Now going back to the downtown and some of the streetscape areas, we wanted to show you at least some visual simulations. And again, this is just taking photographs and overlaying on those photographs what it might look like if we made certain improvements. So this is looking to the north on Park Avenue. And you can see the existing conditions, the drive condition, the roadway width itself, some of the adjacent parking areas. But you also have the back of house or the back of building conditions. You have air conditioners, trash cans, trash receptacles. All appropriate things that need to be thought about and utilized, but yet could there be ways through some improvements to offer screening around those features? Through screening and also some other roadway improvements, there is the ability to add pedestrian realm or possible bike lanes along Park Avenue, as well as streetlights to add aesthetics to that downtown or that streetscape area. And again, looking at these simple techniques or tools to try to improve the visual image and improve the functionality of those areas. I think that would go a long way to make those improvements. Another simulation we did was further down on Store Road, where is this an opportunity to offer on-street parking, possibly some two-way circulation aisles, maybe some pedestrian realm sidewalk areas, utilize the existing walls for possible murals and decorative features that may enhance that streetscape and add some stylized features to it. In addition to that, add some decorative streetlights to add, again, those amenities along the streetscape itself. Is this an opportunity in the back of the building to add outdoor dining? That's another possible opportunity to add activity and vibrancy to the downtown. Now looking at Hospital Road towards the west, towards the intersection of Store Road. Again, simulating what pedestrian connectivity could do to an existing streetscape condition to a proposed streetscape condition, and how that pedestrian area could be improved and enhanced through simple features and decorative elements. Another thing we looked at is ways to make certain improvements onto buildings. This is an example that I borrowed from Kingsbury, New Hampshire. I'm sorry, Keene, New Hampshire. Which identified certain features or certain historic facts about Keene, New Hampshire. And they did these through murals on buildings. Could we do a mural on the existing building that exists along Route 17? Quick simulation of how that potentially can look. This is by no means recommended as the final product. It's only to try to show you ideas of how simple improvements can add interest Could it be about Tuxedo itself? Could it be about Harriman State Park because you have many people using this as a gateway to those park systems? So it's just ways to show and reflect upon certain features and points of interest that you have within the downtown area. In addition to that, the conceptual report shows some of the streetscape details. You obviously have many nice historic features in your downtown that I think are things that we can capture on. What I'm showing here is in Princeton, downtown Princeton, they've used these imprint material to highlight crosswalks and show you details of how just the roadway itself can be painted and even imprinted with this material, which cars can drive over, snow plows can plow snow over. And this is accepted by New York DOT as an appropriate treatment over their asphalt surfaces, just to show you how it's been applied and utilized in other locations. A quick idea of how possibly we can do some signage. And again, I try to capture on the existing train station, some of the historic architectural features that you have. Identify that it's the gateway of Orange County. I know that's part of your masthead these days, as well as the Hamlet Business District. And you can see through features such as this, and this is just a quick illustration of how that could look. But utilize stone that also reflects form from other building materials that exist within the downtown. So it's trying to reinforce that historic aspect of your downtown. Also look at street lighting. I think you have an opportunity of what's been also implemented at the train station. You have existing street lights that are there right now that we can utilize the styling of, but yet make more efficient in their detailing. And that street light itself is comparable to what current standards are available in existing by manufacturers currently today. What I would recommend is changing from what might be high-intensity discharge lamps that are out there now to LEDs, so we're improving the efficiency, but utilizing LED fixtures that also have a better color rendition index that has more of a historic quality to them as well. So they're not the bright white that everybody might know as an LED fixture, but as something more of a warmer coloration of the fixture at night. So again, it reflects and it complements the downtown historic district. And so thank you for your patience, really summarizes some of the ideas that we've been exploring. And again, this is a conceptual plan, so we're open to questions and recommendations and ways to improve this plan and its recommendations. As was mentioned by the earlier presentation, is that this is part of the streetscape improvements, and there's other features that I know will be looked at in the downtown area, but it's meant to provide that as really an opening idea for how to make certain improvements, and I think in very cost-effective ways. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Yes, Ed, I'd like to thank you. You've really put together elements of a coordinated plan through a detailed analysis and some really striking visuals. You mentioned identifying opportunities, and I think that's really what we're going to be trying to do over the next few months, identifying opportunities and priorities, and really just figuring out steps, identifying funding, and obviously getting community input as to, initial responses to these kind of presentations and how we continue to work together with Related and Lennar, the ideas you were talking about, connectivity. So maybe I'll just pass the baton to our board members for some initial comments.
Just 1 second for a piece of business. Can you get out of that so that
Absolutely.
Marissa can take back control of the spaceship?
Can do. I'll unplug.
Thank you. Michelle, did you have just some?
Sure, thanks. Well, thank you, Ed. We talked to you about coming up with ideas that would be sustainable, affordable for the town, and make a high impact. And I think you came up with many solutions to our pedestrian and vehicular circulation issues that we have. And I think that once we really kind of find those best solutions that we can go forward with, that kind of gives the structure, the infrastructure for businesses to be able to really attract customers and in a way that is exciting and is going to really enhance the Hamlet area. So I'm excited about moving forward and seeing how we can implement some of these ideas.
And if I could add to that as well, it's not just for businesses and patrons, but also for landholders. So we're creating more value out of their properties. Because as we all know, businesses and downtowns have really suffered as a result of e-commerce, as a result of just COVID and its changes for how people utilize space. But what I think COVID has done, interestingly enough, and we've seen this in many other downtowns, is I think people are more willing to shop locally and stay local instead of going to more regional centers. They'd rather stay local and go to some of these businesses. That if we can improve pedestrian connectivity, available parking spaces, things of that nature, it advances the opportunities for the property owners themselves, improves their value.
Great point.
Jay? Did you have any?
I
response?
do. So let me start by saying all the nice things Darby said. Just write them down, put my name next to them.
Thank you.
A couple of questions, though, to help me understand, and I understand it's a conceptual study and et cetera, et cetera. I'm a structural engineer, so and I know what those words mean. When you were looking at some of the traffic modifications, did you, as part of your research, did you look at counts and flows and that sort of thing? Or is this presumptive based on the overview in the photograph?
It is presumptive, yes, it is, based upon what we've seen, but also went out to check measurements to see if you have the actual widths available. And in some areas, I think you do. Yes, they may be a little narrow. It might take some study in order to make sure the aisle widths can work along with the sidewalks, because your available right-of-way is only so big. I think some of the asphalt may have ventured onto adjacent properties just because of growth over time, advancements over time. Nothing intended other than probably incremental growth as the driveways have been, or roadways have been improved. But that I think as we advance this, we may have to go out and survey conditions to make sure that the widths can be accommodated, and or if there has to be easements granted in order to allow some of the improvements to work. Again, not trying to take rights away from private property owners, but just trying to make the best opportunity for everyone's benefit, as I was mentioning a moment ago, for their own private interests as well.
Which is a great segue into the next point I want to make. As you pointed out, a lot of this happens on adjacent property to town property. I mean, probably most of it. Do you have any feeling on assuming we had all the money we ever would need, how much of this the town could do tomorrow as of right versus, not that I'm suggesting we're going to force anything onto anybody, but
Right.
I mean, how much of this is it's going to be a public-private partnership. Have you any idea of what that ratio is?
Right. Not offhand, to be honest, but yet there will be, I would say it's probably 1/3 private to 2/3 public. Because there is a remodification of driveways. There's possible easements needed for sidewalks, things of that nature, so that we can allow these connections to occur. But yet on balance, the municipality is trying to add parking. They're trying to add areas for dumpsters to be enclosed and improved, so it allows for that private property owner to have more aesthetic features along the backside of their building as well. So I think, yes, it's about a 1/3, if I was to guess, 1/3 to 2/3 in percentage. What probably I would recommend is we look at this and develop an overall plan, but yet do refined areas of study and even do some pilot areas where you can take simple demarcations of striping and just demarcate those stripes and see how that actually works. So you can do that incremental growth and incremental improvements to see what decisions need to be made and modifications need to be implemented.
I think that's a prudent approach. You know, we're looking for the low-hanging fruit, and obviously on town property, we have the least conflict, so to speak. The train station, we're actually trying to put together a RFP to basically give it a major facelift and just bring it back to everything it was restored about 20 years ago or so. And you showed photos of the lighting and things like that, and I think it was interesting the way you showed the actual parking stalls and the wide space in between, you know, to bump something away from Route 17 to create a little pedestrian walkway. I don't think we'd lose any parking at all, and
Exactly.
make that connection and just see how it looks and how it goes. I think those are the kind of things we'll be talking about over the next few months, of course, with your firm and your input. You know, what could we do to try some of these ideas out, to try to build, you know, consensus and, you know, what works with the least amount of anxiety for anyone or.
Sure.
But I'll just come back to, you know, those words, identifying opportunities. I think on one of your first screens, you really used some key words that showed what a comprehensive plan really needs to entail. And I thought, you know, just seeing it all on one screen, you know, does make you go, wow, yeah. Everything from the signage to easy ways to really carve out pedestrian pathways that could easily be reversed if it didn't work.
Sure, sure.
Can I ask a question? Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm Maria May. I am home. I'm sick today. But I kind of wanted to piggyback on Ken's idea. Is there anything, are there recommendations for the highest impact work, like sort of an order of operation kind of thing? And, or like, what would be the thing? So I think for us to make some of these changes, it means like a seed change for the people living in town, like starting to consider Park Avenue and, you know, as a main road, as opposed to like just the little road in the back of the bank kind of thing. Do you have particular recommendations of like, you know, how do we make that change? What is the highest impact at the least amount of cost for us? What would be like the first thing that you would suggest, I guess?
Right. I haven't put together that list, but I think that should be a final list that gets established within this study. But yet, what I would offer is probably doing a study. You can even use cones to try to, maybe some asphalt improvements to look at either Store Road or Park Avenue as a two-way roadway. It obviously is now, and people are using it as a two-way roadway, except, I'm sorry, Store Road is not, but yet Park Avenue is. But yet, you could do things like that so that you're looking at ways of studying the flow and circulation and seeing if there's any conflicts or issues, not only from a vehicular standpoint for patrons, but also for emergency services, to see if they have any issues with turning movements and things of that nature. I've seen that done in some downtown improvement districts where those sort of incremental changes are tested. And they're a test to see how they work. Drive a fire truck down this area to see if that width works for you, something of that nature. So I see the roadway circulation features. We could be doing some of the sidewalk areas, pathways, call them bike lanes for now, to see how they work. And in some of the areas, definitely do some of the crosswalks that we've talked about. I think that's very easy to do from the standpoint of its implementation. What I tried to do also with the recommendations of the roadway improvements was trying not to change the drainage, because I noticed the drainage is all by surface drains that aren't necessarily in curb inlets. If those of you who may not know the difference between that is that you may have an open drain area type of thing. I tried not to change that, but maybe we need to think of certain areas might need to be changed. And so that might need a little bit more drainage improvements that may put it back on the list and further longer range steps within the overall improvements. So it's a give and take and studying of that that I think needs to be done next.
Thank you.
Did you have any other comments you want to make?
Well, I guess my comment would be, I'd be interested to hear, I think what we have to do is prioritize some of these ideas as to which ones are the easiest to do and what are the priorities. And then start to put together a project list to basically see the feasibility of a lot of these things. And come back with a plan and see how we can move forward with community input and which things we want to start with, if at all. I think the real issue is, my understanding is that anything we want to do along Route 17 has to be approved by the New York State DOT. So our first step to be, the fastest thing to do in terms of priorities to say, what is DOT needs DOT approval and what needs town input, and then separate them and prioritize them and start to work down a project list like that. That's what I would suggest.
Well, obviously, tonight was really just to.
Yeah, we need to study it and everybody needs to digest it
We
and see
literally
what
got the report
good ideas or not good ideas.
Monday.
Yeah.
And I'm also throwing in that for our audience that although Ed put the suggestion of questions, we're really not prepared to take questions. Maybe a few brief comments of response, but I would just ask people to understand that we just got this, and this is really not a forum to try to overanalyze it. Just,
We have this on the website?
it is on the website.
Yes.
Okay, so it's on the website, and I'll say the usual thing, send one of us an email if you've got a great idea, and we'll
Or a
add it to the.
comment, yeah.
or-
You can also post this presentation on the website if you like.
Definitely will, yeah, we recorded this as well.
Okay,
And,
good.
this will be posted, but if you wouldn't mind sharing your deck, that would be great as well.
Absolutely. Got it right here.
So, Ed, I'd like to thank you and thank our audience for coming out tonight. I can assure you that we'll be continuing these discussions through a variety of forums. And thank you, Ed. I think this will conclude the presentation. We do have one order of business that we need to take care of as a town board, but I will pause for a couple of minutes and just let Ed close the show down. But thank you again, Ed. I really
Thank you.
appreciate the presentation. I'm sure we'll be following up really soon.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Thank you.
And if
The new firearms for the police, Chief Trezino wants to make a minor adjustment, and we're going to take care of that in just a moment. But that's the only order of business we're going to deal with. So if you want to go watch the end of Wheel of Fortune, please go ahead. We'll be right back. Thank you. The chief, we're about to take care of the request to adjust the quote for the firearms and associated peripherals that go along with that. So.
Sir.
I think the number is now 95, 92, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to adjust the resolution that we made, I think it was the last meeting on Monday, Marissa?
Sir.
No? Regardless, you'll go back
We
to,
did on the 28th, I believe. It was the last meeting of last year.
Right.
okay, the 28th.
Can we just make it 10,000?
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the pursuit of the quotation for Amchar Wholesale Incorporated to bring the purchase authorization up to $10,000 to cover the equipment that's outlined in the quotation from dated 1/11/23. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second.
Seconded by Deputy Michelle Lindsay. Any discussion from the, I got a second, right?
Yeah, that's right. Now we can discuss.
Any discussion on that?
No.
No, I think just, if I understand we discovered that the first set of sites that you were looking for has a fatal flaw, and fortunately, we found out of it before we bought them.
Yes. So before we made that final transaction, I went for a deep dive into the testing process and everything of that particular equipment. And yes, there was that fatal flaw uncovered. So thank goodness we did discover that.
Thank you for doing that.
Any further comment from board members?
No?
Okay, all in favor of approving that motion to raise the purchase up to $10,000? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, let it be known in the record.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
everybody.
Thank you, Chief, for resolving that for us. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting at 7:47. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'll second.
She beat you to it, you know. Deirdre Murphy, seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
The meeting is over. Rest in peace.
This is the other one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night,
There are
everybody.
no houses on Store